And time to get to know someone a little bit better. Now, this afternoon, my guest has had the most fascinating career. Former journalist who spent much of his time working with some incredible charities here and overseas as well. And his latest role is his toughest yet. Richard Robinson is the CEO of Hourglass, the only charity working with older victims of domestic abuse and neglect. The charity covers the whole of the UK, but it is based right here in Suffolk. And we can chat to Richard now. Hi, Richard.
Good afternoon.
How are you this afternoon?
Oh, hot and bothered. It's really hot here in Sudbury, and it's getting a bit warmer too.
Yes, indeed. Tell us a bit about the charity, because I hadn't heard of it before, I'm ashamed to say.
It's odd you should say that. I think there are so many people that haven't heard about Hourglass. And I think it's mainly because of the fact that the issue itself is so misunderstood as well. The charity actually launched back in 1993, and it was originally called Action on Elder Abuse. But elder abuse is a rather archaic term these days. So we rebranded as Hourglass. And we work with people who are, as you say, older victims of domestic abuse. But elder abuse covers so much more than that. It covers neglect, it covers issues in care homes and discrimination. And we get around somewhere between 13 to 15,000 calls a year. And issues really come from generally the families of people who are working with older people, domestic situations, and actually not so much care homes at all. Probably less than 10% of our calls are dealing with care homes.
It's totally shocking. So the calls that you get are with regards to family members that are domestic, abusing or neglecting an older family member. Is that?
Yes, it's really about the abuse of trust.
Okay.
And so that could be that the sons and daughters or nephews and nieces or other family members who could be physically or emotionally or financially abusing their loved ones in a variety of ways. And so therefore it's often under the radar because of the fact that people don't want to criminalise their own families. That said, we do get some success with legal means of putting things right, but we're here 24/7 trying to support families as they're going through these really, really tough and emotional situations.
So you mentioned that this is your toughest role yet. What do you think are the biggest challenges that you're facing?
Without a shadow of a doubt, funding. We are really struggling at the moment because of the fact that the pandemic has led so many charities to look for crisis funding to get them over the line, and we are no different. And one of the most difficult things about funding Hourglass is that we're not a very cute and fluffy and easy to fund organisation because it's such an emotional subject. Nobody likes to talk about the people at the same age as their mothers or grandmothers or grandfathers being abused. And so the elevator or escalator pitch is so difficult. And a platform like me talking to you now on Radio Suffolk is very unusual because it's a subject area which is painful for people to talk about. So we find ourselves really struggling for funds and relying on funding from trusts and foundations and a little bit here and there from the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice. But actually, we are really in a funding crisis at the moment, and it's a big issue for us as an organisation.
I totally understand what you're saying, and it is a really uncomfortable thing to think about, uncomfortable thing to talk about. It probably stands to reason that it's even more, surely it should be easier to get the funds because there's a reason why we all feel uncomfortable about it. And that's because what a desperate situation that must be to be in.
Well, I think one of the big issues here is the fact that it's underplayed to the degree it is. Hourglass did a survey just a few years back during the pandemic, which talked about the fact that there are 2.5 million people across the UK who are affected by elder abuse. Which, when you tell people that, they are immediately shocked, because actually those figures are bigger than some of the other forms of domestic abuse you might hear about, like child abuse and other similar forms of abuse. And so, therefore, one of the reasons why I say that it's the toughest job I've ever had is that whilst I know that Hourglass are absolutely straining every sinew to help everybody that calls, we are also fighting a battle of trying to get people to understand that role. And I've never really been in that situation before, where the subject matter itself is a hurdle, as well as the fundraising, as well as the media, and as well as perhaps the needs of lobbying and talking to politicians. I mean, even trying to talk to my own MP in Suffolk is almost impossible. So it's a real challenge.
Wow! And so when people do finally come forward or approach the charity, is it the people that themselves that have recognised? No.
Very rarely. I mean, we do get some older people who pick up the phone and talk to us, but generally speaking, it's their families. It's perhaps their friends. It's sometimes their carers. And it's sometimes other organisations or practitioners who are seeking advice from us. And we went 24/7 back in March this year. And actually, we've now seen calls overnight, now greater than calls during the day on occasion. So I think having this 24/7 service has really enabled people to get advice when they need us most. And so it's a weird situation that we find ourselves low on funding, but actually need it more than ever.
I was going to say, and the pandemic must have really heightened the situation as well when it comes to abuse of older family members.
I think all forms of abuse was heightened during the pandemic, because generally speaking, there are lots of examples of when abused people were trapped in their homes with people that were abusing them, with whoever it was. And so therefore, charities like Hourglass had to redouble their efforts to find ways of supporting people when they couldn't leave the home. So that's one of the reasons why we launched an SMS service, a text message service, and we went online and had an instant message service for the first time, because we really wanted people to feel that they could touch base with us no matter what their situation was.
Well, Richard, I mean, I'm so glad that you're talking about this here. You know, it might strike a chord with someone. If people want to find out more about what you do, how can they?
Well, we have a website, which is www.wearehourglass.org. That's www.wearehourglass.org. But if you want support from us, then please feel free to speak to us on our free phone 24/7 helpline, which is 0808 808 8141. That's 0808 808 8141. And that's, as I say, that's open 24/7.
Okay. And